Like decision making is the biggest aspect of what was good about our team this year. Is we every single day we tried to put them in situations where they had to make decisions, and sometimes those were with advantages, and sometimes they weren't. But we always talked about the decisions. We didn't punish decisions, especially early on, because we want to make quick decisions. If we're going to make quick decisions, that means sometimes they're going to be the wrong decisions. But I'd rather fix the wrong decision through experience than have them make slow decisions.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at Birdville High School, Anthony Holman. Coach Holman is entering his 20th year of coaching, all at Birdville High, and his fourth season as a head coach. His overall record is 72-31, with an average of 24 wins the last 3 seasons. He was a standout high school player, becoming Birdville's first ever all-district and all-region boys basketball player in 2002. Coach Holman continued his playing career at Austin College and led the team in scoring in the 2005-2006 season with 16.8 points per game. The Hawks had an historic 2024-2025 season, finishing at 35-4 and the first ever UIL Class 5A D1 state championship appearance. Coach Holman was named 6-5A Coach of the Year and Dallas Morning News finalist for Coach of the Year. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coaches and athletic directors, our sponsor Scoreboard Media has an incredible opportunity for your school. Right now, they're giving away 2 large LED video scoreboards, $152,000 value per school, to 32 select high schools across the country. Scoreboard Media pays for the boards, the software racks, and iPad controllers, as well as the delivery and installation. On top of that, they'll run the entire advertising program, generating a significant revenue sharing opportunity for the school. Since 2021, Scoreboard Media has been helping high schools upgrade their gyms and execute professional sponsorship programs. Not every school qualifies, and they're signing up new schools every week. So inventory is moving fast, and the install calendar is filling up for the summer. If you're interested, reach out to Scoreboard Media founder Charlie Megan at charlie@scoreboardmedia.com to set up a call and see if there's a fit.
Coach, my goal in doing this podcast has always been to not act like I have everything figured out and to be honest and transparent with how I see the game and how I view things. For anybody listening to this, Coach Holman and I have been talking already for about 20 minutes. We went into how amazing of a run that they had, how special it is that Coach was at Birdville as a player in 1999. And then, and I even made the comment about he's the first ever all district, all region, and we talked a little bit about the culture and how difficult it was going through this year. And then about 20 minutes in, I realized that I hadn't started recording the whole thing. So we're on now, and I'm stoked to continue to have this talk with Coach and go through some of the questions that he chose. But I feel like because I needed him to understand that he didn't do anything wrong. It's all my fault. But some of the gold guys that he talked about and we've already gone through was great. Gave a shout out to Cole Johnson and Jeff Clarkson and their playing days. And so, Coach, I apologize for what just happened. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I've appreciated our friendship over the years and so excited for the year you had. Again, thank you for being here.
Man, thank you for having me, and no worries at all. I mean, we're getting better right now. Just being able to chop it up and continue to talk hoops. If this means we got to lean in just a little bit more, let's do it. I'm ready.
You know what I did to you? And I should have just pretended like this was strategic and like I do this to everybody in the office. So I'm a huge Office fan. When Michael Scott would get on the phone with a client, Cam would tell him he's on so that he would say his first intro that was usually super inappropriate or bad. And then she'd say, "Oh, still me," and then tell him to come on again. That's not what I did with you, because I'm telling you, the stuff that you were sharing was awesome, but I could have gone with that. Like, yeah, Pam would always make sure that he got the bad out of the way first. And now, we're good to go.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're like, "Hey, Coach, tell me a little bit about your playing days." And then you're like, "I don't want to hear it. No more of that."
I just slowly hit the pause button to stop. And no, golly, I've already enjoyed our talk. but we got into culture a little bit. So diving into that more, the culture that you guys had, and you mentioned earlier about how you kind of fought for it every day and how the players were the ones that were in charge of it, not necessarily just the coaches driving it. But how does culture drive performance?
Man, I love that you got that from what I said as far as the players driving it. It's because, like I said, it was, culture is the little things that we see, the little things that are happening on a daily basis and what you're fighting for on a daily basis. And people define culture a lot of different ways. And I know sometimes it becomes a buzzword, but the way that people describe it is I mean, it has to fit their program, right? It has to fit what they're doing. And so it's a bunch of little things, but it's also a shared belief amongst your organization. And a lot of times I think that, as a head coach, I know that I made this mistake when I first came in. I said, this is the way it's going to be. These are our beliefs, and everyone in here is going to follow these beliefs because that's our culture. And that's not necessarily shared beliefs. That's one dictator telling everybody how it's going to be. So if it's a group of coaches, our 3 or 4 coaches in our office, and that we're just going to hammer out, this is what we believe and this is what we're doing, and nobody else buys into that, then we can't really consider those shared beliefs, right? And so what we do is, or what we try to do is allow our players to have input, allow our players to have ownership, because accountability is going to come at the highest level when they actually buy in and they have ownership of what it is we're expecting. Obviously, we have standards. We have to make sure that we continue to hold our kids to standards and hold our kids accountable. If you walk into a practice where it's just standard based, and I mean, this is hypothetical. Let's say that this is a hypothetical practice, just standard based. What I would imagine seeing there is a bunch of robots or militaristic style situations going on where I don't want to lead a bunch of robots to fit into exactly what I want. A bunch of basketball players that are bought in for each other, accountable to each other, and accountable to what it is we want to do. And so our culture, hopefully what our culture is a group of all of us together working towards a common goal, and doing that in ways that we all believe will be successful. And when we believe they'll be successful, that's when the success comes.
And I love that you talked about it being a shared belief. And I know I've been guilty of either going to a clinic or when I was with PGC for a few years. Like my first year at Faith, I had never directed for PGC before. So we had a certain set of values or standards. And then I went to PGC and directed for that summer. And SHAPE, I went as an athlete back in high school, but SHAPE, SCHAP, was what I taught that summer. And I loved it. And so I brought that back and just crammed SHAPE down the throats of our players. And they're good kids, like at Birdville, they're pleasers. And so they went along with it. But it took me a few years to realize, like, I don't know how much that's shared from them. And I like it, but what do they like? What's important to them? How do you go about getting that input and ownership from them that you talked about?
Ownership is a huge part of it, and just having conversations, and we discussed it. You and I were both players, and we understand when we step away from the game. You had mentioned, stepping away from the game allowed you to become a better coach, and I agree with that 100%. Because what that does is, I'm not out there anymore. I'm not the man in the arena. Our guys are. You know what I mean? And so when Trent Bowers comes over to the sideline and says, "Coach, this is what I'm seeing," I better take that as gospel. I better take that as something that if we have shared beliefs here, then I'm not just going to say, no, you get out there and do it exactly how I see it. This is what I saw. I can't believe you missed that, or whatever it is, because you're not going to get ownership and buy-in, in my opinion. It's kind of the thing that let's just say you feel like going to a zone, right? And you've been in man, and you have this, as a coach, we all have this instinct to say, okay, it looks like this might be an opportunity to jump into a zone here. Talk with your assistant coaches. They might agree or disagree. And then you go to the team and you say, hey, we're going to jump into zone here. And you look at, we've all had this experience. You look at all 5 faces and they just go flat. And no matter how good the strategy of going to zone was, if they're not bought in and believing in it, then it's not going to be effective. So
Yeah.
No, we're not just, hey guys, what do you want to call this time? What do you guys want to run this time? That's not how we're doing it. That's not what I mean. But it's at a certain level. It's say, hey, are we bought into this? Like, do we believe this can work? And that comes from trust, and hopefully we've built up some trust with them that they feel like we're trying to do what's best for them. We're trying to do what's best for our organization, for our team, and it also comes from trust from the work that we all put in. They see us putting in work, we see them putting in work, and then we can go out there, and if we trust each other in those situations, then we say, hey guys, do you feel like if we go into this 1-2-2 right here that'll mix up what they're doing, and you get some buy-in from it, and then we jump into it and see some success, and now we're rolling because we're all bought in, we all trust each other, we're all playing our rear ends off. It's another way to facilitate confidence in what it is that we're doing.
And so many good things there. And I think it depends probably on the level of play, the age of players, the amount of skin they have in the game. Like you have some guys that play pretty high level select ball and are playing all year round. They have a lot of miles up and down the floor. And because of those experiences, they probably have a really good perspective on what could work, what their team feels like, they're out, like we talked about before we were recording, we're watching the game, and instead of having players' eyes anymore, we kind of morph into having coaching eyes. But the problem with that is we're not playing, and we don't necessarily see everything that they see. And Coach Garnett, Matt Garnett, said players have to do what they see. But I love the idea of you checking in with them or asking them what they think. And there's a couple things with that. Like one, early on, I think as a younger coach, I might have looked at doing that as, what if they feel like I don't know what I'm doing? And basically, it's an insecurity. I need to project this confidence that I have all the answers and I'm never wrong. And asking them, hey, how do you feel about that? To me, what it does, you want to have players be co-creators of the culture. Man, that really brings them in. But it has to show a level of confidence and security in who we are as coaches. And then the second thing is, like, why ask the question? If you got to know your team. If you sense there's hesitancy or there's a change or a shift in their body language, I would, hey, Trent, like, what do you think? Do you feel something different? And then there has to be follow through there, because if you ask for their opinion, but you don't, and they know that you don't really value it, that you're not really listening to it, you never allow their decisions to actually be made, you always shoot it down. There's going to come a point where they just don't ask, or they just do. And like, they're those robots, like you said. So I don't know what point it gets. And maybe some people naturally have that. But it was a big shift for me. I think maybe gaining more experience, becoming an older coach, where I did start to listen to my players and not view it as weakness in me, but as us together, all of the stakeholders in this, trying to make it work.
And I think, just like to kind of go back to what you said, it kind of depends on the level and it depends on the kids. And those are our responsibilities as the leaders to feel that out and understand that this team might be a little different than the next team. If I'm coaching our freshman guys, we don't just pull them together and say, hey, what do we feel about doing right here? That's going to be a little bit more structure. It's going to be a little bit more, hey, we got to make sure that we got this basic stuff down before but Trent's been on the varsity since he was a freshman. Avery and Sawyer have been on the varsity and DJ had been on the varsity since they were sophomores.
Yeah.
And so that we've built up a rapport and they've built up some credibility to where, hey, we're all working as one unit. Obviously they've shown, hopefully, well, I'm not going to say hopefully, they have, because they deserve for me to say that. They've built up a respect for me that, as we're going through this, when coach says, okay, this is what we're doing, let's go do it, right? But he allows us, and I hope they feel this way, that I allow them to have input, and their input matters to me because I want to be bought in together. And I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. And I think you're spot on. That maybe early on the insecurity was, hey, we're doing it my way, and let me show you how much I know, as opposed to, hey, what are you guys seeing? Let's make sure that we're doing the best thing for what we have going right now, for where our energy is, where our body language is, what our matchups are, all those things. And it's a shared belief, which is the definition of culture, a bunch of shared beliefs that make up an organization.
If anybody is just terrified to try that, ask their opinions, or if there is a player that suggests something and actually going with it. I mean, one, like what's the worst that's going to happen is that possession, it doesn't work. And then you can just go back to it, to what you're doing before. But I don't know. I don't know if you felt this way. I think like take skill work. The more that you individually work with players, treat them all as playmakers, give them courage to shoot open shots. Man, I've been pleasantly surprised by what players do in games. You know, like they usually don't prove me wrong. They prove me right in what they're doing. But the suggestions that players have given me over the years, man, so many times I'm just so thankful that I went with them. And then if there ever is a time of a disagreement, or you know what, I think the way that you respond to it. I'm thinking right now of a college coach this past March Madness that, man, there is a clip caught of him responding to his assistant coach. And maybe, I don't know if you're reading lips, it looks like he told him to shut up.
Hurley. That's Hurley.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't gonna
Yeah, you
say
didn't
his
have to
name.
say it. I'll say it.
Not like
I don't know if you're
that's
not.
right. I can say it. Yeah. I mean, there's so much greatness with him, but then like that was just, you saw that and you're like, oh, wow. Great reminder, not just players, but also our assistant coaches listening to what they have to say and really valuing it. And I'll give a shout out to Coach D, my varsity assistant from this year, and he's been with me for a while. We were about to play Grace Prep for the second time. Really athletic team in our district. They just have great players, a great coach in Josh Duke. And we had been at their place about 3 weeks before, playing fast with them or trying to do it, and we lost by 16. So, okay, are we just going to double down on that and just try to play faster and try to make up that gap? But they may have some horses that are a little bit better. And he had the idea, like on the defensive end, you know, if we're in our zone, which I want to give you credit for that here in a little bit, but if we're in our zone or if we're in man, we're going to pack it in and make their possessions a little bit harder and be in those gaps a little bit more. And we won by 3. I wouldn't have done that. I would have doubled down on speed. I would have gone D'Antoni land. Oh, that didn't work. We're just going to shoot more. Oh, they're scoring on us. We're going to play faster. But thankfully, I had an assistant that was like, Coach, this is what I think we need to do. All to say, instead of how we respond to our assistants and how we respond to our players when they give suggestions can lead to culture strengthening, or it can really break it down.
100%. And we're cut from the same cloth. I'm doubling down on running it and upping the possessions, firing a few more. No, but it creates extreme ownership for everyone in the organization. Like if I'm up there saying, this is what we're doing, here's the scouting report, exactly how I want it to play out. Here's the plays that we're going to be running. Here's the script of the game. Not only is that obviously creating robots. I don't want to coach robots. I want to coach basketball players, but it's also not allowing anyone except myself to have ownership, right? And then if there is correction necessary, if there is a situation where we need to step in and say, hey, well, you know, let's talk about that decision. Well, the coach, that's what you told me to do, right? And so it's the same thing with the assistant coaches. We allow ourselves to have ownership over the entire product if we all have input, right? And not just one person kind of dictating that. I'm not absolutely blessed with the assistant coaches we have. 2 former head coaches, Coach Hudak and Coach Tippett. Coach Tippett was head coach at Carrollton Creekview, and his last year there, they went 3 rounds deep. He's been an incredible coach at a lot of different places, but a head coach at Joshua for a few years. And man, those guys, I would just be absolutely dumb to not listen to the input they have. That would not be we would not be where we're at if it wasn't for those guys. And so those guys are blessings that I would want in our office. When we sit down in our office, this isn't I don't mean for this to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. I promise you I'm not. It's not a
Just
me
so
sitting
humble.
in there.
I'm
This
the
is how
most
things are
humble
going.
person in the world.
If I haven't told you how humble I am yet, let me tell you. No, I don't sit in the office and tell them exactly how it's going to go all the time. It's like, hey, let's sit in the office. Let's all be head coaches here and figure it out. And I feel like that created ownership, that was passed down from Coach Fitch. Coach Fitch would allow me to have as much input as I possibly could. And so he invited it, and the ownership grew there. Not just that it was as important to me, the wins and losses and the overall growth of the program as it was to him. And I hope that that's what we're instilling with our other assistants right now, is that we all have equal input, so we all have equal ownership. And when you know this, when it rolls downhill, that's coming to me, and I'll take it, and I want to take it, because that's my job. That's my responsibility. You're never going to hear me say that it was somebody else's fault.
You nailed something right there, though. That may be why, another reason why listening to our assistant coaches and the advice or the feedback they give is so valuable, because they don't have the fear. Of course they want your program to be good, and of course they want you and the players to have success. But I was an assistant once, and I remember the thought of, like, okay, like, this is his team, this is his career. Like, these wins, these losses, they're not on my record, even though I was all in what we're doing. So my feedback could be just raw, in the moment, objective, not subjective, because of not, and as a head coach, I think all of these all the stakeholders are in our minds. You got the parents, you've got the select coaches, you've got the skilled trainers, you've got their friends, you've got their teammates, you've got the player themselves. And so we're sometimes trying to juggle all of these different relationships. And to me, I try to think about all of these different directions that this decision could go. Like, how many dominoes is this going to, and you can go down too many rabbit holes that almost just lock you up. But then, like you said, you've got assistant coaches that, man, they're not worried about that, because they're not having the parent meetings. They're not going to get called into the
Yeah,
AD.
they haven't had.
Go ahead.
Sorry, they haven't had those conversations, so those things aren't playing. Those scenarios aren't playing out in their minds, and that's a blessing to have people that are as experienced as they are, not having to worry about those things, because those are the burdens we carry, which is what we're supposed to carry. Man, you know that there's times I'm not gonna sit here and kid anyone. There's times that decisions have been made based on a conversation I had with a kid, and if somebody throws something else out there and says, hey, that's not the best decision right now for this particular scenario, then I would have to rethink it. Like, okay, you're right. You know what? Thank you for that. Thank you for that input. That's what we needed.
You've made a comment a couple times about not robots, but basketball players. And I completely agree. And let's just say that robots is the blue pill and basketball players is the red pill. When did you make that switch? When did you take the red pill to think, okay, it's going to be not me joysticking them and controlling every possession. It's going to be creating, it's like our faith. We have these guardrails that God puts in our life that it's not so we don't have fun. It's so that we don't sin or we don't cause ourselves or others pain. We kind of do that with offense, as we have these guardrails that there's a lot of freedom in. When did you start thinking of it like that? Or have you always done that?
Man, after about a 2-hour conversation with a coach named Matt Sayman. No, we had, my first year, we were so talented, so big. We had 6'10", Division One, 6'5" Division One player that ended up going to Michigan State. And we were really, I'd always kind of bought into having this rim runner style offense with, we're going to get into, basically numbered break and then hit a trail to a high-low. And if you don't do this, then you do this. And so it got really, really, to me, just stagnant. And I had a conversation with a coach that I have to give props to. I told you I was going to, and we talked about, honestly,
I did not ask that question. I did not ask that question for you to do that, for you to go down that route. But yeah, keep going.
Softball. No.
Before we came on, I said, "Hey, listen, I need you to give me credit for what? No, for all your success." No, go ahead.
No, we're trying to, what are the goals? We're trying to spread the floor, get paint touches. We're trying to gain advantages, create advantages, and keep those advantages based on quick decisions. And a lot of times you run a big guy right down the middle of that, and it's kind of clogging it up. So we're going to have to space the floor a little bit better. Spacing is going to look differently for us. And when spacing looks differently for us, that means you're putting 5 dudes out there that better understand how to play basketball. They better understand, what all of the different things that go into what we're trying to accomplish offensively, and within their own role, but also in a sense of freedom that allows them to go make decisions based on what they feel like is best in the situation they're in, right? And so it's not a if then situation. It's a hey, I've been put in a situation, I've been put in space to create for my team, and this is the best thing I can do in that situation. And so it's that conversation and everything's stolen. Everything's stolen. And, you're going to hear as we talk, you're going to hear some Coach Sip from Allen. Shout out to Coach Sip. You're going to hear Coach Weir at Keller. Big influence offensively for me. Coach Weir, shout out to Coach Weir. It's about creating a situation where kids enjoy. It's not like, man, I've got to go and do this one role. It's no, hey, let's go find 5 basketball players. And unfortunately, sometimes because it becomes positional, as you look over at our bench, sometimes you'll see a 6'6", 6'7" sitting down because they haven't really bought into the way we're trying to play. And I love those guys, and I want them to be, I want them to fit in those scenarios. But then I think an old school mindset is, hey, just go set them on the block and throw them the ball. It's just not how we're trying to play.
I love that you brought up the rim runner thing, and that's something that I was asked to speak at the Mavericks clinic at I think at Frisco High School, one of those, but this was a couple years ago, and I just blurted out a statement, and I think we always got to be careful with these, like saying like that never works. And so the DBU players were the no UTD players were the ones that we were using and stuff. And it was really fun, but I was teaching them kind of our 5-out, our flow, and an advantage game that I really, really like, where you go 5-on-2, then 5-on-3, and 5-on-4, where you're just teaching them to find the open guy. Because who's the most dangerous player? The open one. And the open one has to receive the ball. And like, it's a concept that, you and I were talking earlier about players not seeing open teammates and us yelling, he's wide open, throw it. He doesn't see it. So we have to create situations for them to learn to see it. But I threw a comment out there. Yeah, like we're not going to rim run because rim run never works. And I just said it, and it just kept going through. And thankfully, a coach emailed and said, hey, I heard you say this. What data do you have to back that up? None. I have no data to back that up. But I've played in a numbered break with a rim runner, coached it early on, and me and Wes Watson ran it. But in 5-on-up, and you're doing your 5 trips, when it's time to hit the rim runner, he's always open, and he catches it and he dunks it, and then we run the other. But that's 5-on-up. I think if you really look at, here's the deal: check and see, does the skill work you're doing, the concepts you're practicing, are they actually showing up in games? Because I would say that the upping it to the rim runner rarely happens. Now you could say, well, the rim runner pulls that defender down, and maybe opens up that guy, possibly. But like you said, if the goal is, if no one's more dangerous than me, and I can't up it to them, then my job is to get to the world. Well, the world needs to be empty. And the moment you stick a guy there, you bring another defender in, then there's less friction with a corner 3 and that defender straddling that lane line. There's there's a lot of friction there. Do I help and lead this, or do I give up a layup? When that dude's sitting in there, it really slows us down. And I should have probably, there's no perfect way to do this. And rim running, yeah, occasionally, man, it looks really nice, but I agree with you. And, but I love that you brought that up, and watching you guys play and how you used, was it Sawyer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How big is he?
6'7". Yep.
The way you used him, though, it was so fun because he could play on the elbow. All of a sudden, then he's shooting a 3, and then he's ripping and attacking. I'm like, if I'm the other team and I see 6'7", I'm gearing up for post play. But that dude was all over the place. That's hard to guard.
Man, he's a big part of our success, because there was a stretch of the season where he's shooting over 50% from 3. We finished the year at 46% from 3 on 104 makes. So it's highly efficient player, 6'7", and a lot of our success came from him drawing the other team's biggest player, because he did have the ability, like you said, you call him Brunson's, I call him Barclays. He'd get into the Barclays and spray out of the Barclays, or if he didn't draw 2, then he could go to work there. And so it was more about spreading the floor, putting pressure on the corners with really good shooters to flatten the defense. And so we had to make sure that we found ways to attack the rim. And we just weren't doing that with rim runners because we would always, inevitably, you'd get a rim run once a game, and everyone's like, oh, that was nice. But inevitably, that big fella, no matter how much I preach to him, hey, once you rim run or seal, you got to step off to the dunk zone. He wants to follow the ball. He wants to ask for it. He's got the smaller guy on him or whatever. And now we're not getting any paint touches.
And everybody's holding it and checking, and you don't have rips happening and dominoes forming.
And so we just wanted we want to space the floor to give our kids the best opportunity to create those double gaps and get into actions that'll give us advantages from there. I mean, I think that's the biggest part of stealing that is from you and from different things you hear from different coaches is, everybody, all these kids they're working on their bag, right? They're working on their individual vision. I'm like, we need to work on decision making. Like decision making is the biggest aspect of what was good about our team this year is every single day we tried to put them in situations where they had to make decisions. And sometimes those were with advantages and sometimes they weren't. But we always talked about the decisions. We didn't punish decisions, especially early on, because we want to make quick decisions. If we're going to make quick decisions, that means sometimes they're going to be the wrong decisions. But I'd rather fix the wrong decision through experience than have them make slow decisions. And we lose all advantage. We lose all opportunity to put pressure on the rim. So it was a big deal for us to spread the floor a little bit more and then put kids in situations to make decisions constantly making decisions, whether we go 3-on-2, put them in ball screen actions, put them in our small-sided actions. Everything that we do, we try to give our kids opportunities to make decisions. And then Coach Hudak and our defensive coaches, they love that because while I'm over there just thinking about offense, they're trying to figure out how to solve the puzzle of being at a defensive disadvantage. Because when you play Timberview and when you play Beaumont Westbrook and when you play Mansfield Summit, you're going to get a defensive advantage. And now we better be able to scramble out of it. We better understand what to do out of it and how we're going to support each other out of it. So putting our offensive team in advantage, it seems like, and the kids sometimes, especially when we're keeping score, they get a little bit frustrated. Like, hey, they're always going to be at this advantage. Well, your time's coming, but also you're getting better defensively because you're learning how to scramble out. And if we, it's what's the term that slipped in my mind, reverse engineer. If we reverse engineer what we're trying to do offensively, then everything we're trying to do offensively, if we think that's the most effective thing, then we should probably build our defense to take those things away, right? And so we're doing those things at the same time. And I think it's just the takeoff our kids have had from that has been incredible because you hear them talking about it in huddles. When we play out of advantage and when we work on making good decisions, when a team is pressing us, our kids light up because our kids will say, hey, this is what we do every day. You take care of the basketball, you get tough with the ball, you make one good pass, we're playing in advantages. We're in an advantage, and the more possessions we get, I think we had the highest PPP in school history this year that, we're trying to up those possessions. It's one of the reasons we started playing a little bit faster defensively because we realized if we could get more possessions than the other team, then we give ourselves a really, really good chance to be successful. And our kids love it. And that's the conversations we're having to say, hey, this is just like an advantage drill. You get strong with the ball, this first pass out of the press, and now they're in a scramble, and we're doing what we do every day, and they love it.
You nailed it there, and I could see that from watching. What was the team you played at? Louisville? Was that Timberview?
Frisco Heritage, incredibly talented team, well coached team.
Oh yeah, I mean they had some great athletes and a couple. Man, that one guard, darn good, but they were pressing you, and they were getting up a little bit, and your team was never rattled by it. Instead of, okay, so back to PGC, there's a question we would always ask is, how do you know you've broken the press? And man, kids would ask or answer with so many different things. When you cross half court, if you don't turn it over, when you get to run your offense. But the Dick DiVenzio idea is, man, you've broken their press when you get an easy shot, from it. And but the whole easy shot is really an advantage shot where they've created a 4-on-3 for you. And so you just have to attack. But again, if that's not something that you're talking about every day, then you're going to see kids cross half court and hold it and go, we broke their press. Okay, now coach, what are we doing? And I think that just feeds into teams that do press, but they meet someone like you with the skill that you have and they're fearless and you're taking the great shots that they're creating for you, that's the recipe, right?
100%. And the other side of that, and this is my fault, this is something I learned through this playoff run, is when we took the foot off the gas is when we struggled the most. And, and you see late in that hair, they got physical, and it became a physical game. And unfortunately, one of our best ball handlers fouled out. But what we were trying to survive, as opposed to keeping that attacking mindset, that advantage mindset, and that was on me. That's not on our kids. That's on me, because it was a true survival mode of, hey, we got to get it across. Let's slow down a little bit. We don't, but that's not how we've played all year long. And now, coach, we're trying to play a style that doesn't fit necessarily, where our kids are best at or most confident at, and so now, does that mean we're going to keep firing up 10 with a minute and a half to go? I don't think so, but it also doesn't mean that we take off that mindset, that advantage mindset, that we're still trying to punish, make quick decisions and punish teams that want to try to put pressure on us.
I think that's an interesting dilemma that we all find ourselves in, is when the style of play or the identity that we have, that we've talked about, that we practice, that we play a majority of the time, when it might possibly make sense to change it and to slow down or to press if you're not a pressing team, but they're a little inferior. They don't have good ball handlers. We're going to do this out of nowhere. When you maybe not second guess, but make that adjustment, I always worry, what is this showing my players? Is it fear, or is it that, hey, we like to play fast, but we can't do it against these guys? Or we built this lead, let's not lose it now. I don't know if I have a really good answer to that. So when you're in those decisions, now you're talking about maybe a time where you felt like you didn't do it, or you'd like to do it differently. But I don't know, Coach, how do you, in the moment, know when to keep your foot on the gas or when to take it off?
Man, I wish I had a great answer for this. It's got to be a feel thing. I assume it's got to
I
be
think that is the answer.
personnel wise.
Yeah.
It's so much about, I would never have, I don't think anybody that watched us leading up into this season would ever say that Birdville is a pressing team. But what we found out is being able to put pressure on teams, it was going to, in many cases, expose their skill at a speed that we're used to playing at. And then we play a lot of really, really well coached teams in district that execute really, really well. And they're all going to, for the most part, a lot of them are going to outsize us. A lot of them are they're going to execute really, really well. And so what we needed to do is try and increase possessions and increase the speed of the game, because that way we can expose skill. And with the luckily enough for me, not from anything that I did, but we had a bunch of skilled kids that when skill gets exposed, we had an opportunity to give ourselves a chance to win, because we were put in situations where we can make quick decisions and give ourselves a great shot. We didn't ever really talk about, how long that shot was going to take, when we were going to get that shot. Is we're just going to get the great shot as quick as possible. I think that might be a Matt Sayman quote. I'm not sure.
Well, it's Mark Cassio, it's Doug Novak, it's Tyler Costin, it's D'Antoni, it's Arsenault at Grinnell. Like you said it earlier, the beautiful thing about this game is just how you can pick and pull. There's not just one system. You can pick and pull so many things, and you can play around, and there's things that we don't do now that we used to do, and there's things we do now that we didn't, and that's just the fun of it. And I mean, I want to get again to you were a huge catalyst for change for me. And yeah, I'll just jump right into that. It was a 19-20 season, and we were more of a pack line man team at that point. But I realized, man, like that style of defense does not really mix well with running and gunning. So we were just playing slower and didn't have much defensive identity. And I ran into you at church, and I don't even remember what church it was. Where was that? Was it Gateway, or where was it? Yeah, maybe.
So, my wife, we were members of Gateway for about 10 years. So it must have been Gateway.
Yeah. At North Richland Hills, I think. Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, saw you, and we were just talking about our seasons. You said, man, you got to check out this zone. And in my mind, because up to that point, I had pressed before, but it was always back to man. And I had never gone zone before. And my eyes rolled a little bit in my head, like, oh, is this dude really talking to me about a zone? Like, I don't do that. I played for Tommy Thomas at the Colony. We don't play zone. And no, but man, like I was interested because we needed something. We needed a change. And you texted me just a set of rules for this 3-2 pressure zone that you said was doing amazing things for your team. I think maybe the JV at that point, but that Fitch had done, and then learned that Mauser was doing it, and it came from Durant, right? But this zone, coach, we changed to it that year. We made a Final Four run that year, and then we made a Final Four run the next year. I didn't play one possession of man, but then over the years, and this goes back to kind of what we talked about, listening to players and what they say. We were going to go all zone in again for this next season. And I had a kid in maybe our second game of the year say at halftime, hey, coach, can we man these guys? And I told him, I was like, guys, we haven't worked on man. We've only done our 3-2. But we went to it, and they found a level of competitiveness that we weren't getting in the zone. That meeting with you, I think affected me way more than the little talk that you and I had about offense. So I appreciate that. But I think that kind of ties into, though, how we can learn from each other, and we got to be open to share the game. But man, I'm so glad I ran into you that day, because that was huge for us.
For sure. And shout out Coach Durant. Coach Durant took the Keller Indians to the state tournament running that zone. And obviously he had a lot of talent, but it was something at that time, at that stage in the game, that not a lot of people had seen, especially people outside of our area, outside of our region. It might be the first time when we put it on, we'd go to a tournament, and teams, at first they'd run the regular domino action, and it's like fits perfect for us. And it's like they're trying to, and some good coaches too, where they're trying to adjust on the fly, and it just gave us an advantage that we were looking for. We were looking for ways to find an advantage. And those couple of years that we did it, Coach Fitch and got the kids to really, really buy into it. And we kind of poured over Coach Durant and Coach Mauser and Coach Hudak over there, Coach Mauser and Coach Hudak at Timber Creek, and really tried to find out the ins and outs of how we can make it work and adapt it to our kids. The year there where we had really, really good personnel for it, because we had the length that we felt like that we weren't going to be good. We weren't going to be good enough to guard and man the way we wanted to win at a level that we thought that team could win. So we gave it a shot, and we had a lot of success. We ended up losing in the second round that year to a really, really good team, a team that made it to the state tournament. And that it's kind of funny, we still talk about that game, because we were pestering them with the zone, and they ended up holding it for an entire quarter. And we decided during that stall that being down 2 to the number 4 ranked team in Texas going into the fourth quarter, we're going to let them hold it. And that's if we're going to get it, I know you got the shot clock question coming in rapid fire.
It's coming,
you don't even have to ask me now. It's yes. But
the zone would be even better with the shot clock, though.
100%. But my best skill, just kind of to tie back into how you finish, my best skill is stealing. I'm on the Jamodi podcast. I'm on the Slapping Glass podcast, probably more than I should.
That's a good one.
Probably more than I should be in class, checking out all the different things that I could steal and bring to the table. And I gotta give another shout out to my assistants, because I always come in like, guys, guess what? Here we go. Look at this. And they're like, here we go again. What, you must have been on Slapping Glass again. But yeah,
man, that's a good point, though. And I think every time you talk, you just give me just another idea, or you make a great point. It's like, there's so many great things out there, and so many, like, I'm like you, I can borrow. I don't create nothing new from me, but I can listen to Mark Cassio, and man, I like that terminology. I can borrow that. But how do you decipher or figure out what you can use and what you can't when everything sounds so good? Because you can't do everything, right?
And that's the thing. That's the the wormhole you'll fall down is, I got notebooks full of stuff that I'm like, oh, this might work, this might work. But it's really terminology stuff is probably the first one that really jumps out, because terminology is, it's something that doesn't have to be, it's not like an action or a set,
Yep.
or a style of play. It's more of a, hey, I really buy into that terminology. And I really feel like the way that he said that, our kids would grasp, and this is a so much better way to kind of have the terminology that they will trigger their mindset to execute whatever it is that we're talking about. And if we can align our terminology where the kids are like, and the best part of that is hearing them use it. When they say, hey, you got to attack that double gap. You know what I mean? Like, we had an advantage. This got to be a quick 0-second decision there. We got to get that. And so those terminology things are the ones that I think I try to bring to the table more. And then when it comes to like strategy and sets and those things, I kind of have to slow myself down a little bit. And I was like, make sure that, are we getting the basic movement of our offense down? Are we running the floor like we need to? Okay, we got there, fundamentally, are we able to create advantages when there are double gaps, or are we able to give one move and get past our guy to draw two? And when we do that, are we making the right decisions? Okay, we're there, which was really, that's the beauty and the special part of the players we had this year, is when we're there and we feel confident, then we can start to inject a lot more of those actions, a lot more of those opportunities to go quick hitters. That's where it really gets really fun, because the kids are really smart. And then you do see something on Twitter. Coach Hudak emails it over to me, and I'm like, let's look at this fifth period today. I think the kids will love this, and so we're not over. I don't think we're over. What's the word? It's not indulgent. I don't know. We're not. I don't think it's overkill, because it's just enough to say, hey, could we use this to get ourselves a bucket, or could we use this to get ourselves a stop in this situation? And if we can, let's insert it. If not, let's kind of hold off. Maybe that's an off-season type thing.
I think there's a fine line between like over tinkering every day, a new wrinkle. Coach Bliss would come down from when at Baylor, he would come down into the gym, and I didn't know if he was asking me this because he was maybe throwing me a bone. He would come down and say, Matt, I know you know this stuff, so I'm going to put you on the white team today, which was the scout team. And like, he gave me the compliment. I know you know this stuff. But I was like, well, coach, that's great. But if I'm on the scout team, then you're not really coaching me. Like, so that used to bug me. But he'd also come down and he'd say it the same way. He'd say, Matt, tell me what you think about this. Tell me what you think about this. And it would be a new wrinkle, a new thing. I'm like, well, coach, that's good. But like, what we're doing right now to get the ball to Lawrence Roberts, who's going to be an NBA player, that's pretty darn good. Like, but he was always tinkering. I think that you can go too far, but then you could be on the other side of, it's been 10 years and we're running the same thing. There's been no changes. And I think there's a balance there, but there is a part where when like you have an identity, I can hear it. Like I watch your guys play. When you have that, when it's kind of like what Kelvin Sampson said. He's like, if you don't know where you're going, then any path will take you there. If you have an identity or a style of play or a way that you see the game, well, then, man, I'm watching an NBA game and I see a tiny action. I'm like, that. But they've been running 40 other actions that are great, but that doesn't really line up with the way we stand, our spacing, the actions that we already have that can just make it better. So I think that may help from a complete overhaul and tinkering all the time to knowing exactly what that'll work. I don't know. Maybe that helps.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's great stuff, and it's really, really, like, I'm gonna continue to sing the praises of our kids this year. This is really, really cool to have kids text me something they saw on Twitter, like, Coach, could you imagine, like, hey, Coach, could you imagine Sawyer in this ghost action here? And so, like, and this is, talk about selfless mindset. If I'm a 17-year-old kid texting my coach about a play that's going to get another kid open, that's a buy-in right there, that you're just like, I'm looking at my phone like, wow, these kids have it figured out. Like, hey, could you imagine? They're like, Coach, could you imagine, getting Trent into this space here? And I'm like, man, you guys, this is what this is what I've dreamed of. I've always had this dream of a group of kids that play for each other so much that only thing that matters is success of everyone, and it's a cool thing. And then in those situations, I'm jumping right into it, because even if I feel like we didn't have time to put that on, or we might not get to it, we're throwing it in there because I want them to feel heard. I want them to feel like, hey, if you're going to text me this as a situation, we have a team captain that doesn't play at all, but he's so invested in, hey, coach, could you imagine if we could get Sawyer coming off this stagger double here? And I'm like, golly, you guys are just, y'all just filling my basketball terminology bucket. And I think those are the paychecks that you talk about. I do follow the Jamodi podcast. The paychecks that you
Coaching
talk
paychecks.
about, those are the immediate. Those
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I pray that those long-term paychecks come from those wedding invitations and those things. But these immediate ones are these guys that are just like, hey, I'm bought into how we're trying to play, and I'm also bought into it's not about me.
This always blows me away. It's been like 4 years of getting to do this, but every talk that I've had, I feel like I at least get one thing. Most of the time, it's a ton of stuff, and I've written down a bunch, and that's a big nugget though. The kids, like, how do I know that they're bought in and that they love the way that we play, that they're all in on it? Are they texting me things that they see? You could maybe hope that they do it. And like in your case, man, they're just so bought in that they're excited. They see something in that light bulb that probably shows their IQ too. The fact that they could connect something that they see on TV to actually the way you guys play. Like, that's impressive. But I think that's going to be something that I start to ask them. Hey guys, during the season, hey, we got college basketball coming. All right. If you ever see anything, record it that's interesting to you or you think fits, record it. Man, send it to me. I love to see that. I like that. Another thing that I've done is with select ball, when we're kind of maybe in the summer and it's a little slower, or when we get back in the fall, hey guys, tell me an out of bounds play that you ran that you really liked. Tell me a quick hitter or something that you guys did, a wrinkle that you think we should add in here. Sometimes it's like, coach, listen, we don't need any of that, but other times it's they get excited because they're brought into, they're a co-creator of what we're doing. Both of those, though, I love the idea of them texting. Definitely borrowing that, man.
It's a great thing. It hasn't always been that way, but it's a great thing to have. Be searching for ways to get better and having the courage to communicate it.
You've talked a lot about pressing and playing fast, and I would imagine a lot of coaches automatically think, I would love to do that. We don't have the depth. But I think you already mentioned you're doing it with 6 or 7 guys. So you've proven that you can play fast and you can press with a short bench. How did you do that as far as getting them in shape? And I'm not necessarily asking, like, did you run a mile? Which we could go down that rabbit hole. I disagree with doing that personally. But how did you get them in shape, keep them in shape, and then protect their legs through the season so that they can continue to do that? Because that's what I would worry about with 6 or 7. Not that they couldn't do it for a game or two. How do they do it throughout the course of a season? So I love to hear that.
So first of all, you don't want to go down the rabbit holes, but I'll just poke my head in there for you. You can't. We're playing a fast twitch game. I mean, unless you're trying to get toughness or some type of competitive greatness out of them, then why are we training fast twitch?
There's other ways to do it with a ball in their hand.
Right, for fast twitch game. I'd like to take credit. Our assistants are great strength and conditioning coaches. Coach Hudak ran track at SFA, and Coach Tippett he has a very militaristic approach to the things that we do off-season stuff, and so
Nice.
there is some definite buy-in the training side of it. But the honest answer, the guy that played the top of our press is a unicorn. And you've coached this kid. He never gets tired. He never, it doesn't matter what situation we're in. He played all 36 minutes of the state championship game and could have played 36 more. And when you have kind of that on-ball kid that's just a pest all over the place, he's coming back this year. I'm so thankful to have him. His name is DJ Driver. I mean, shout out to DJ. I love DJ. He is a literal genius when it comes to understanding, like he can watch two guys bring the basketball up the floor, and all of a sudden his brain just understands, the different motions that they're going to have, the different, ball fakes they're going to have. And he would just out of nowhere just stick a hand up and take it and go. And he's just that's a fortunate thing. Like I can take zero credit for that. There's nothing that I can tell you that, hey, this, you gotta, sometimes you just got dudes, and he's a dude, and a bunch of guys that bought into it, and we played a high pace. We wanted to have a lot of possessions. I'd say probably the only real coaching advice, I tried to be strategic with our use of timeouts. I tried to be really, really strategic with that, with the use of timeouts, and how we gave guys breaks, because definitely during that stretch, obviously during the season, we're getting a little deeper with our bench, trying to incorporate some guys and giving guys opportunities during tournament time. But as the playoffs came in, there's situations where I don't want the all-state players sitting next to me. I want the all-state player on the floor. And so, that may mean he's not going to get as much rest as he probably should. But in those situations, we just had a very fortunate group of kids that had trained their bodies and their minds to compete at a high level for long periods of time.
When you are dealing with, only 6 or 7 majority of games getting in, but you've got, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How did you go about as a coach managing, their expectations, their role? What was it? Conversations? Was it constant? And obviously the success helps, right? Like winning on more games, like, it's kind of hard for them to argue with what you're doing. But yeah, what'd you do to keep the culture there?
Yeah, that's you hit it right on the head. The success is the driving force there, because no matter how much, we're building relationships, they know I love them, and I hope that they know that I love them. I try to tell them every single day. And one of the things in that I hope that I got across to them is, because I love you, I'm never going to lie to you. We never made promises. They understood their role coming into it, and obviously there's ways and opportunities for you to increase your role, but your role is your role, and if you can accept that and understand that and be the best in that role, it doesn't always mean you have to like it or agree with what I've designed or what I've decided your role was, but you have to accept it in order for us to be successful. And we had a bunch of guys that were just bought in to doing whatever they could to help the team win. And in practice, we don't. It's not we don't practice with the JV often at all. So in practice, if we've got 13 guys, we've got guys, their level of practice and the level of reps in practice is equal to the guy that's playing 32 minutes. So we, unless there's an injury or some type of situation that we need to run something, fresh body, then we don't mix in the JV. We practice, and we mix them. Our practices are competitive, because it's not a, ones versus twos type deal, unless it's something specific or something we're going light on that day that those guys needed to work together. We're going to compete and we're going to keep score. And I think that those guys bought into, this is my job. We had a kid that knew every single day his was to try and make Sawyer better. Like his job was to try and keep him from getting shots off and try and get in him and try and guard him the way that other teams were going to guard him. And that was what he bought into. And the thing about it is, and I know they weren't the right color medal, but when they handed out those medals in San Antonio, nobody was left out. You know what I mean? It wasn't the top 6 getting a medal. Everybody there got the medal, and everybody there will be able for the rest of their life to say they stood on that court and were a part of a state finalist team.
Man, that's a great point. When you look at the gold balls in your trophy case, there's no asterisk by kids that didn't play, or there's no exclamation point next to the guys that played a lot and scored it. Everybody's names are there the same. That's really good. And I think 2 great things that you said. One is that you had those conversations early and you were honest. And I think as hard as those talks are about, listen, I really appreciate you, but I don't see you getting a lot of playing time this year. Man, have those questions, or have those talks early on, so that maybe you can honor them by allowing them to make a change, to make a choice. Well, then, coach, I don't know if I want to put in all the time. Man, I get that. I understand. And I think that's a way to honor them. So you had those talks, but then another thing is you developed each of them in practice. So I think what hurts a player even more is when, okay, I'm not getting playing time, but I'm also not developing in practice. And that's where at our parent meetings at the beginning of the year, we need to help our parents, help them. They won't always see it this way, but help them separate the difference between playing time and development. Playing time, that's the recital, that's the big show. But the development happens every day for everyone. And the only promise that I ever make to any of our parents is that I will develop your son daily. But that has nothing to do with how much I care about them, nothing to do with how much they play. Doesn't always make them happy or that they, oh, I get it now. Thank you. No, but maybe we bring them in a little bit more. But I think you nailed it with that's probably a way to keep guys showing up every day. I love that.
And that's one of my many weaknesses, but probably my biggest one is just it's really, really hard to play a bunch of dudes. It just, for me, and I know other coaches have a lot of confidence. And please hear me out. We had really, really talented basketball players, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way through, guys that could really help, in my opinion, varsity teams in our district. And that's the fortunate thing to have. It just was tough to get those guys in, but what we continue to do, especially for those senior guys, is continue to make it competitive, continue to show them their why, show them the why of how this is working out. And now you mentioned this, and I won't put anything above this. The success is the driving force in that. You know what I mean? Like if you're 2-28 and these kids are still sitting on the bench, then you start to say, hey, you know what, maybe I could be doing better. Maybe I could be playing and coach should be putting me in. But the success is the driving force in that. But with the success comes that idea of, hey, I am contributing just as much as this guy is every single day. I'm just not getting the time during the recital, like you said.
Yeah. Penny Boren said one of the best ways to build your culture is to win. I thought, man, that sounds like Flower Mound Marcus right there. Like you could say that with those dudes, but no, you're right. And maybe hard to get into this now, but maybe that's a little bit of the art of scheduling too. Like if you just take over a place, know your team, like know what you're walking into. Yeah, you can take a brand new group or a group that maybe doesn't have a lot of talent and then get their heads beat in every night. And you can say, we're getting tougher. We're getting tougher. Maybe you can build that confidence through winning some games. And as they get better and better through development, you can have the schedule like you guys had. You can have the schedule where you're playing the best of the best, but we've got dudes that know how to win. And they've done that before.
Coach Barham was not wrong, and this would tell our guys all the time. There was a pretty big story throughout the run was our following. The community and the student section and all of the things that came along with it. And we continue to tell our guys, and especially the younger guys in the program, is that doesn't just come back next year. It comes back when you win. And so
yeah.
It's not something, that we should take for granted first and foremost, or something that we should feel entitled to. The following happens with success. And so to get that type of following, have those type of experiences with student sections and community support, it's got to be successful because people want to follow that. And, other than mom and grandma coming to watch your game, you want the rest of the city to come watch your game. We better be pretty dang good.
Coach, the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. The first thing that pops in your head, just blurt it out. Ready to go?
All right, let's do it.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Rocky Road, no doubt.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph, it's no question. I want to say Ray Allen. Ray Allen was my guy all the way through. This is not a suitable movie for anyone watching or listening to this podcast who's under the age of 18, but He Got Game was a movie that
Jesus
I watched
Shuttlesworth.
when I was in high school. And Jesus Shuttlesworth, and so I just started following Ray in Seattle and Milwaukee, and just had a lot of love for Ray. But even wore number 34, some just because of Jesus Shuttlesworth. But it's no one can argue with Steph. I'd love to see an argument against Steph. You know what I mean?
Do you stand up or sit down in games?
Stand up. And I start in my chair. I don't know. I guess it's became a habit. I'm going to start in my chair and the ball gets thrown up and I'm up. I'm up and I'm moving and I may squat, but I'm not doing a whole lot of sitting. And one of the things that I try to do, we were very fortunate to have some games where we had some big point differentials and try to coach those last few minutes and those last quarters as hard as I did the first ones, because those kids deserve that just as much.
Top 3 dinner guests, any time period.
All right, Kobe, just the competitiveness. Kobe's got, and especially like late maybe even post-career Kobe. Those conversations I think would be incredible. Will Ferrell, just we're gonna lighten up the mood, and I think he's a basketball fan. I went back and forth with coaches. I think Pop. I think in that setting with Kobe, with Will Ferrell, and with Greg Popovich, I think that would be an entertaining conversation. Just because the quirkiness of he, and obviously the genius of him,
Yeah.
and no nonsense type attitude. I'd love to hear the way that he thinks the game, because you don't get that a lot from him. Some coaches will peel back the layers, and obviously he has peeled back the layers on his relationships with Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. But really, the X's and O's part of it, what he wanted is what the perfect possession offensively looked like to him, because that was flow before we were teaching flow.
They're
put
before the
clips of
Warriors.
those.
Yeah, they were doing that stuff. Yeah.
Right. They were the selfless mindset, the one more passing, the attacking gaps to draw two and get paint. That was what they did. And I'd like to know, is that the talent that he had, or obviously it's the coaching? And golly, that would be
I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's both.
right.
Yeah,
And
there's
so
two videos that people need to watch. And I think they're both kind of called the same, but like The Beautiful Game. I think if you put in The Beautiful Game for the Celtics and The Beautiful Game for the Spurs, both of these videos will come up, and it's on that like 86 Celtics team and then the Spurs teams. And I feel like I show those to my guys every year just to show like what joy does ball movement create. And so I think that's good. I love that dinner though. That's going to be great. Best basketball movie of all time.
I feel like Hoosiers is that's the cliche answer. I don't really get.
You
I
said
don't
he
know.
got
Like
game
I'm gonna have
earlier.
the old guys mad at me. I don't get into Hoosiers really.
It's fair.
I like he got game, but I don't think that as a follower of God and a representation of God that I could really recommend that one.
It's fair.
So I'm gonna go with, because no basketball movie. I like Glory Road, and there's things about Coach Carter, but I'm gonna go with my little brother. When I was growing up, was in love with Space Jam. And we watched it over and over and over again. I'm huge. Just go ahead and answer your next question now. I'm a huge Jordan fan.
Got it.
So let's
Got
go
it.
with Space Jam. I could not wait
Love
to show
that.
my son Space Jam. Let's just say that. I could not wait.
And then I was so disappointed with Space Jam 2. And I think it really showed how great of an actor Michael Jordan is compared to LeBron.
Right.
Like
It
LeBron would
just
make these faces and I'm like, I don't even know what are you trying to convey right now? Like what face is that? Do you text with one thumb or two?
one thumb. I can I knock out texts with that one hand. I had to learn to do that because I do a lot of incline walking. I do a lot of incline walking on the treadmill. That's my cardio these days. So
With ya.
the texting has to happen with that one hand.
Love it. All right, know the shot clock one already. Okay, do players sit the rest of the half with 2 fouls?
No. You trust him enough to be out there in those situations. He's been out there long enough to get 2 fouls. Now you trust him to say, hey, if I felt like you were the best chance for us to be successful in this little time slot, this little 4-minute game, in the last 4-minute game, then I'm gonna put you out there and trust that you're not gonna pick up that third one. And a lot of times I feel like games can be lost in those situations. And I remember as a player, it was an automatic when I was in college.
Yeah.
And it was an automatic that Clue, you're coming down, and you could lose all momentum, all you're cold on the bench, now. And then also the mindset of a 16-year-old, especially if he's one of your better players, they're going to make up for the time they missed in that short amount of time when they get back in there in the third quarter. They're so hyped up to whatever it is, whatever they're thinking. And I know we don't want them to be thinking about their averages or thinking about their impact on the game, but that they are, even though we don't want them to, they are. And so now they're trying to make up for that 5 or 6 minutes they missed in the first half in the second half. And so I just think as we navigate that game, we don't want to put ourselves in a situation we can't climb out of, but we got to be smart,
What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What book would you give someone? We'll take the Bible out of it.
You went in the locker room first. It's been a huge.
Gordon. Yeah.
I'm an audiobook guy. I'm an audiobook guy. It's really tough for me to sit down and read, but I can listen to books and multitask in that way. And it's been finding that out, just in the last few years that I'm an audiobook guy has been incredible for my ability to take in books, to consume books, because before that I wasn't a big reader. I wasn't a reader. I'm not going to lie to anyone. I wasn't a reader, but consuming audiobooks, I think I'm at 25, 30 a year now.
Wow. Yeah.
Before that, if you would have told me I was reading books like that, I would have said, that's not me. You just, somebody lied to you.
That's a good nugget, though. I like that. All right. Last question. If this was your last year of coaching, what would you do more of?
If this was the last year of coaching, what would I do more of? Just, I don't want to sound cliche, just diving into the relationships. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Putting aside Xing out of huddle, checking my amount of time spent on huddle, and just Xing out of that. You know what I mean? Shortening up practices, limiting my voice a little bit, and really trying to be a good listener to the relationships and what type of kids we have, because it's that we walked out of San Antonio, and the overwhelming sadness was not because of the loss, even though it hurt really bad, but the overwhelming sadness was like, this was the last time we will all be together in this setting. This is the last time we will all be together. And I want this to last forever. And the way to make it last forever, in my opinion, would be to know so much about these kids and be so invested in these kids and have them be invested in me that we become lifelong. It's hard to use the word friends in that situation, but lifelong partners in whatever way that looks like, So I'd say investing in relationships more than the X's and O's.
Coach, this was awesome, man. Again, having a relationship with you, friendship over the years, and getting to watch you this past year, but learning more. I just want to thank you so much. And you gave me an hour and 23 minutes of recorded time with another 20 minutes that only you and I are going to know how great that was. But I just appreciate you. And thank you so much for talking hoops with me, man. This was awesome.
Man, you are a blessing, not just to me, but to the basketball community. It's an honor and a privilege to be on with you. I think I made a tweet sometime last year about how we have these expectations when we leave for the summer that our kids are going to come back better. You're going to come back better. You're going to be stronger. You better be. You better be a better shooter. You better find ways to get in the gym. You better come back better. And we say those things, and do we look in the mirror and find ways to make sure that we're coming back better? And you are a tool, an absolute resource. God, that sounds terrible. You are a resource. Your podcast is a tool that
Just call me a tool.
Your podcast is a resource and an absolute tool for the ways in which I make myself better, and I'm able to help make our staff better. If I could show you my text messages about, hey, check this one out. Go listen to Coach Wester. Go listen to all these things, and you're making that possible. And so I can't thank you enough for our relationship, first and foremost, but also for allowing me to have the resources necessary to come back to my team a better coach.
I appreciate you saying that. I knew where you're going with the tool part, but it did pop in my head like, all right, but I knew what you're saying. But no, it really does mean a lot that people are getting things out of this. At the end of the day, like the time that I get to have with you, I mean, kind of holding you captive and asking you questions, that's worth it for me. But then, when I think you feel the same way, like it's just such a great profession. And for us to be able to give back anything to it. I mean, you and I have been playing since we were little. I was on a team since I was 9. The game has been incredible to me. And so just to be able to give back, it's awesome. But getting to talk to guys like you and learn more and build strong relationships, that's just this is awesome. So thank you again, man. Just appreciate you, and I'm always rooting for you and your team.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.